Yeah, that was a fun race. How's it going, everybody? Hope your week is going great. My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove. I need to update my intro now because I got some new footage that I can throw in there. We have a decent amount of stuff to talk about that isn't necessarily 100% playoff related, but for the sake of, I guess, rating importance, I guess we'll talk about playoff stuff first. So to get everyone up to speed, no pun intended, this past weekend's race was at Texas Motor Speedway. Only the second last race before we determine who the 4 championship contenders will be. Kyle Busch had already locked himself in after winning at Martinsville, so he was kind of in the clear. And then there was Chase Elliott, a driver on the other end of the spectrum, who after being punted from the lead at Martinsville last week, was kind of in a must-win scenario. And there was a ton of guys in between. Truex came into the weekend just needing to have a great points day, and he was going to be good to go, and spoiler alert, he did that. I think typically we look at Texas Motor Speedway as, it's your typical mile-and-a-half racetrack. It's fast, it has challenges, especially since it's been newly repaved and reconfigured, but we don't really see it as a super big wild card, the type of track that's going to shake things up too much, but it did a pretty decent job of that this weekend. I mean, we saw your usual suspects run up near the front. You saw Martin Truex Jr. lead a lot of laps. Kyle Larson led a decent amount of laps as well, even though he's no longer a playoff driver. He's good at this track. You saw Denny Hamlin jump out to the lead early and lead a good amount of laps. You saw a lot of playoff contenders have good days. But the reason I say it was a shakeup is because you saw a couple playoff drivers who are usually very good at Texas have some serious issues on Sunday. Jimmie Johnson, the all-time winningest driver at Texas Motor Speedway, finished 27th in the race after having to pit several times out of sequence. They had issues, didn't have a super fast race car. They ran most of the race several laps down, had a catastrophic day, especially by their standards. Texas Motor Speedway has been one of Johnson's staple racetracks last few years here. It seems like he always wins, especially in the fall race. And this year, that was not the case, and unfortunately they really needed it to be the case. As a result now, going into Phoenix, Jimmie Johnson is 51 points behind the cutoff line. And I don't know about you guys, but that is insurmountable without a win, and that's kind of the box that Jimmie Johnson, Chad Knaus, that whole 48 team, that's the box they put themselves into right now. Things don't look good. They haven't shown good speed in a long time. They got lucky to even make it this far in the round thanks to Larson and Kenseth having issues at Kansas. The 48 team is not a championship team. They're really not even a round of 8 team, and right now that's sort of coming through, unfortunately. But never say never. Phoenix, Johnson, they're great at basically every racetrack. He could go out and win Phoenix, play some strategy, have a decent race car. Things can happen, but things don't look good for the 48 team. Championship number 8's looking like it might have to wait a year. Now, I talked about how Chase Elliott was the guy at the bottom of the standings coming into this race this weekend. After the incident with Hamlin at Martinsville, people thought about whether there'd be retaliation. There really wasn't, as I didn't think there would be. I think there's going to be retaliation. It's going to be this weekend at Phoenix. Texas is not the track that really presents that many opportunities. And also, Chase Elliott didn't have a great car at Texas. I thought they would be more of a contender. I thought they would be a top 5 car, possibly a winning car this last weekend. They were more like a 10th place running or a 7th place running car. Still had a decent finish, but he did not make up very many, or really didn't make up any points. He's 49 points behind the cut line. Chase Elliott, much like his teammate Jimmie Johnson, is in a must-win scenario at Phoenix, and you know what that means. Only one Hendrick car at a maximum is going to be in the championship 4. Ryan Blaney, I also thought would have a little bit better day. He still had a top 10 run, top 10 car most of the day, but Ryan Blaney was hoping this could be his race to kind of bump him up into the top 4 going into Phoenix, or maybe get a lot of good stage points, a lot of good points in this race, and really make it close going into Phoenix, but he really wasn't able to do that much of that. He is 22 points behind Brad Keselowski, who's the 4th place guy right now, so Blaney doesn't need to win, but he's going to need something to happen to Keselowski, and he's going to need a great finish and a great car. And I probably should have mentioned this before I start going through the points, but there are 3 drivers already locked into Homestead at this point. Kyle Busch won Martinsville, and then Kevin Harvick, who I have not talked about yet, he won Texas Motor Speedway. And then Martin Truex Jr., like I said earlier, had a good consistent, had a 2nd place run. He has clinched a berth to Homestead just on points. That's how many stage points and wins he's gotten over the course of this season. So those 3 spots are already locked in. These guys are all battling for just one final spot, and that one final spot is currently held by Brad Keselowski. And Brad Keselowski had to overcome a lot of adversity at Texas. Lap 1, the first set of corners actually, Kyle Busch got loose and made contact with the 2 car, and Keselowski had to pit under green, had to go multiple laps down, worked his way to get back on the lead lap through the course of the race, and had a decent finish at the end of the day. In fact, finished 5th. If Brad Keselowski does make it to Homestead, things look pretty good for him right now. They're definitely going to look back at this race at Texas as just an incredible performance, an incredible rebound. It could have been a catastrophic day. As it is, it turned out to be a positive day for the most part. Brad Keselowski currently has a 19-point lead over 5th place Denny Hamlin. Now, Denny Hamlin, he had a great weekend at Texas Motor Speedway. He came into the weekend 7th in points, down at the bottom after last week, and he's still on the outside looking in, but at least now he is in 5th place. So the only guy he has to really focus on beating is Brad Keselowski. Denny Hamlin led laps early, finished 3rd, so had a solid performance. I picked him to make it into the Final Four. Things aren't looking great, but hey, he could easily come out there and impress. And if Keselowski slips up, has too many issues at Phoenix, has any issue at Phoenix like he did at Texas, and isn't able to rebound the way he did, Brad Keselowski is going to be in trouble. And guys like Hamlin and Blaney specifically should be right there to pounce. Chase Elliott, Jimmy Johnson, I think if they're not in victory lane at the end of the thing, they're not moving on to Homestead. So should be an interesting finale for Phoenix. I feel like it's not going to be as tight, and it's not going to be as dramatic maybe. I don't know if dramatic, it could be very dramatic, but it's not going to be as chaotic, I'd say, as past elimination races have been, mainly because of such a big gap between the 4th place guy that got the last guy into the playoffs, and the 5th place guy, the first guy out. I think that gap's bigger than usual, so that's kind of going to be, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I think it's going to be a lot of guys feeling like they have to win, and they're probably right. Now, of course, the one thing I really haven't stressed at all yet in this episode is that Kevin Harvick in the 4 car did win the race, and Kevin Harvick's had pretty kind of low-key playoffs so far. They've been really good, one of the best, one of the most consistent teams, and they pointed the way through every round. But this win at Texas was the first time we've seen him in these 8 races kind of rise up and show that he has the speed to run with Truex or with Kyle Busch. And in fact, that's probably my biggest takeaway from this race at Texas Motor Speedway. Texas is a mile and a half, a lot like a lot of other tracks on the circuit, and similar in a lot of ways to Homestead, the championship race. And it's a type of track that Martin Truex Jr., while he has never actually won at Texas, he's won it basically every other mile and a half, multiple times it feels like. So the fact that, especially on the last run of the day, I know Truex led more laps over the course of the race, but at the end of the day, Kevin Harvick's team made their car better than Martin Truex Jr.'s team. So that, if anything, shows that Truex is beatable at mile and a half. So I know that sounds ridiculous to say. Of course he's beatable. Everyone's, it's hard to be that dominant at any type of track, but Truex has been about as close to complete dominance at mile and a half type racetracks this season, last couple of years. And to see a guy who's not Kyle Busch, who's not Kyle Larson, beat him, I think that raises some eyebrows. It shows that, hey, this Stewart-Haas Racing Ford over here, maybe they have something that can compete for the championship. I picked Harvick to make it into the Final Four, but I did not think it was going to be because he was going to win Texas. And I definitely did not think he was going to have the speed to run with Truex in these playoffs, but he's proven it once now. What it really raises the question is, can he do it again in 2 weeks at Homestead? Because you never know. Harvick, haven't talked about him that much this year, given how well they've run. He could spoil a lot of Furniture Row Racing celebrations. So that's just a big takeaway I had, a big thing that kind of raised my eyebrows watching the race. I thought the race was overall pretty good. I was there, obviously, so it was a lot of fun in that respect, but I thought it was good. There was a lot of different leaders who led for a good amount of laps. Like I said, there was a lot of people challenging. It wasn't just dominated by Martin Truex Jr. or Kyle Busch. There was a lot of people challenging for the lead. We saw Hamlin lead some laps. We saw Kenseth lead some laps. We saw Truex, Larson lead laps. We saw Harvick lead laps. We saw a lot of drivers lead laps, and I thought that was, interesting. That was fun to see. It was hard to pass. And that's one thing I think Texas, with the fact that it's a new surface, that's just kind of what will happen. I think in a couple years it'll be a lot better. But I thought it was a pretty decent race. Last thing about the race I want to talk about before I move into some off-the-track stories was Kyle Larson. I know he's not a playoff driver, but he had some more struggles at Texas this weekend. Pretty late in the race, after having to pit out a sequence, having some issues, Kyle Larson had a tire go down. He smacked the outside wall in turn 2 really hard, actually brought out a red flag. It was a big accident, but more importantly, it was his 3rd DNF in a row. And I know in the grand scheme of things, this probably isn't that important because he's not in the playoffs anymore. He's just kind of racing for glory now. But I bring this up because I almost worry that this downward streak he's been on here at the end of this season, I worry that it could possibly carry over into next season, and I hope it doesn't. I mean, Kyle Larson has gone from about 4 weeks ago, we thought he was maybe the championship favorite. It was going to be between him and Truex, and I think a lot of us thought Larson could win this whole thing. And it's just amazing how far that team has fallen in the last 4 weeks. They aren't running bad. In fact, they even led a good amount of laps at Texas, so it's not like their cars are terrible, but they're just having issues, and some of them are self-inflicted, other ones are kind of not as expected. But I think it just kind of has created a negative energy maybe around that team that can sometimes spiral into worse and worse things. You don't want that team's confidence to become shot. Even though I know it's the end of the season and they're going to have a couple months before 2018 starts, I worry that this is the type of thing that you never know, could maybe carry over. That's a young driver, a young team still, relatively speaking, a team that's not used to that much success. This is their first year that they've really broken through and had amazing success. So you just worry that this maybe will become a fluke and they might go back to kind of struggling a little bit next year. I don't think that's the case, but I only bring it up because I want Kyle Larson to succeed. I think he's very capable of succeeding. I think it's just worth noting that it'd be nice if the 42 car and that team could have a pretty good Phoenix and a pretty good Homestead. They don't have to win, but they could run top 5 and finish where they run. I think that would give them some nice positive energy going into the offseason and going into 2018. So anyway, that's all I have to talk about for the race itself and the playoff bubble as it is. I think I'll talk a little bit about Phoenix picks at the end of the episode, so if you want to wait till that, please do. But now I got to address a couple of major storylines that came out in the past few days in the NASCAR universe, the NASCAR cinematic universe. No, but in all seriousness, I'm sure a lot of you guys know where this is headed, but this past weekend at Texas, Matt Kenseth, who's been in the NASCAR Cup Series for 18 years driving full-time, announced that he will be stepping away following this 2017 season. This doesn't come as a super huge surprise to very many people, even myself. I'm a huge Matt Kenseth fan. I've been a major Matt Kenseth fan for 13 years, basically since I got into NASCAR, since I was a little kid to now. I'm a huge Matt Kenseth fan, and even this announcement was not a big surprise to me. The writing's been on the wall for quite a few months. You could argue up to for about a year now. The writing's kind of been on the wall. We all know it was announced over the summer that Erik Jones, who's driving the 77 for Furniture Row Racing right now, will move over to the 20 car next season for Joe Gibbs Racing. That move was announced several months ago, so we've known that for a while. And Matt Kenseth, while he'd been on the market, he was probably the biggest free agent, at least the most with the highest pedigree of the free agents out there, like Danica, Kurt Busch. There's a lot of pretty good, pretty well-known drivers out there. Matt Kenseth was at the top of that list for a long time. And when Hendrick was looking for people to fill their cars, they ultimately went with young drivers. Furniture Row closed down the 77 team. Opportunities have just kind of disappeared for Matt Kenseth, and I think it's been pretty clear now for at least the last few weeks, last couple months really, that chances of him retiring or stepping away, as he put it, were very likely. But it's a shame that that has become a reality, and it's hard, it's difficult to fully grasp. Matt Kenseth has been one of the sport's best drivers over the last 2 decades now. He's won a championship, 38 career race wins in the Cup Series, Rookie of the Year, 2-time Daytona 500 champion. I mean, the list goes on. Probably my favorite achievement of his is that his pure dominance in the 2003 season led to the creation of the chase, where they would not allow a driver to just lock up the championship 2 weeks before it was due. So a lot of people forget about Matt Kenseth. You know, when people think NASCAR, they think Junior, they think Jeff Gordon, they think Dale Earnhardt, they think Tony Stewart, they think Jimmy sometimes, they think Richard Petty. Matt Kenseth never comes up on the casual race fan or just the average person's list, you know. But he's obviously going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer at some point. He's, in my opinion, one of the classiest guys in the garage area. He's always raced with his head down. He's raced hard. He's raced determined. He's never really cared too much about what people think. He's never tried to control too much about what people think about him. He just goes out there and lets his work speak for itself. And I think his work, his career has said volumes about the talent he has, the kind of guy he is, and why I personally have loved being a fan of his for 13 years now. Even though there's been highs, there's been lows, I've loved it all, and it's really a shame that he's going to be stepping down. It's a shame that that's the direction NASCAR has had to go in this case, but I guess it is what it is. I guess we'll move on. It happens to everybody, and he's had a good run. In the interview where he announced him stepping away, it's interesting, he used kind of similar terms that we heard Carl Edwards use back in January when he surprisingly announced that he was stepping away from NASCAR. They never like to use the retirement word, but Matt Kenseth at least showed that, he understands the reality of NASCAR. He understands that by stepping away and taking next year off, unless some crazy deal happens to pop up out of nowhere, he understands that it's going to be very difficult to ever wind back up in a competitive Cup car. So while he didn't use the word retirement, I think he explained and he understood that that is more than likely the case. And that's a shame. But you've seen with NASCAR now over the last just 2 years or so, really not that long, many of the sport's biggest names from the past 2 decades are just disappearing left and right. So while looking at this as a bigger issue for NASCAR, I don't necessarily know that it's going to be a big long-term issue, but I think short-term, and I'm talking about over the next 5, maybe even 5 to 10 years, I think this is going to really hurt NASCAR. I think it already kind of has hurt NASCAR. And I'm talking about the fact that drivers, over the last couple of years, we've had Jeff Gordon, Tony Stewart, Dale Earnhardt Jr., Carl Edwards, Greg Biffle, Matt Kenseth now, and you could argue maybe Danica Patrick looks like that could be where that's headed. These are all drivers, marquee names, big names, drivers who when you go to the racetracks you see plenty of people with their t-shirts, with their jackets on, with flags flying above their RVs. These are big name drivers from all across the country that have reached all across the country with how talented they've been, how successful they've been in their careers, and they are all just leaving. They've all kind of left at like the exact same time, and you look at the people replacing them. Ryan Blaney, I like Ryan Blaney, but is he anywhere close to becoming a household name? No. Eric Jones, I like Eric Jones. Is he really that famous yet? No. Will he be famous in 5 to 10 years? Maybe. You look at Kyle Larson, he's getting up there, but he's been around a few years. You look at Stenhouse, nobody really knows who Ricky Stenhouse is. You look at Daniel Suarez, he's the first Mexican-born driver in the NASCAR Cup Series, so you'd think that would help boost his popularity, but nobody in America knows who Daniel Suarez is yet. It's just, the list goes on and on. Darrell Wallace Jr., nobody knows who Darrell Wallace Jr. is. The marquee names that the average person in America knows and identifies NASCAR with, they are leaving, and they have left or they are now about to leave with Junior and Kenseth and possibly Danica. No one's going to know anything about these NASCAR drivers. Jimmy Johnson will probably be the most famous NASCAR driver still in the sport. And let me tell you guys, if I go into a random sports bar and start talking about Jimmy Johnson, I guarantee you 60% of the people are going to think I'm talking about the old football coach. Jimmy Johnson's got 7 championships, but he is not nearly as popular in the average American household, or worldwide household, I guess, as Dale Earnhardt Jr. or as Jeff Gordon. And that's just the truth of it. So while long term, and I'm talking about maybe 7-8 years from now, these young drivers will grow into their own, they will become well known, they'll be talented, they might have great careers, and I think they'll help. NASCAR will still survive and be good. I think these next few years, NASCAR is going to continue to drop a little bit in ratings and attendance. They're just going to go down a little bit, steadily go down. In fact, next year there might be a pretty steep jump because of Junior leaving, but I hope the NASCAR makes the right decisions. I hope that these young drivers are able to really publicize the sport the way these past drivers did, and are able to get that trend starting to bump back up the right direction in a few years. But NASCAR, at least in the short term, is in some serious trouble if you ask me. But anyway, long story short, it's a shame to see Matt Kenseth go. Matt, if you're watching this, because I know you're an avid fan of Out of the Groove, Matt. I'm sure you watch every single episode. You know how much your career has meant to me. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for being one of the most fun guys out there to root for the past 13 years. And I hope you have a great rest of your life beyond racing. That's all I have to say. Oh, that was sweet, wasn't it? That was very sweet. So anyway, last thing I want to talk about before I go, there was a small update in the NASCAR silly season world this weekend as well. Aric Almirola, it's been rumored for a while now, but Aric Almirola was confirmed to be moving to the 10 car for Stewart-Haas Racing starting next season. We know Darrell Walsh Jr. is going to be in the 43, so Almirola was without a ride. Now Almirola will be in the 10 car, and I think that's an interesting pick. Obviously, he's moving over there because Smithfield Foods, the longtime sponsor with him at the 43, is moving over there, so they will once again be reunited, or they will stick together driving that 10 car. But I just think, I don't know, I think Aric Almirola, I don't mean to be rude, I think Almirola has talent, but dude's been around a few years now. He's got 1 win in a rain-shortened race at Daytona. He's made the playoffs once, and it was because of that. He hasn't proven much, and I think he's getting an upgrade in the car he's driving, much like Paul Menard going from the 27 to the 21 next season. Aric Almirola is moving from the 43 to the 10. That's an upgrade in my opinion. Not a big upgrade, but an upgrade nonetheless. And in both Menard and Almirola's case, I can't say they've earned it or shown that they can make those cars competitive. They could prove me completely wrong, but I don't know. I don't think Almirola is going to go from being a 25th place car to a 10th place car. You know what I'm saying? I think he's still going to be a 20th place car every week. But who knows? Could be an interesting scenario over there. I mean, you never know. They're subbing Danica with Almirola. That's not really a downgrade, but I wouldn't say that's much of an upgrade either. So I don't know that Stewart-Haas is going to see that much change in that 10 car's performance next season. But anyway, that's just me. Looking ahead briefly to Phoenix picks, I am picking, drumroll please, and prepare yourself, I'm picking Denny Hamlin to win at Phoenix Raceway, International Raceway, whatever the heck they're calling that track now. I know. You guys are all booing me. You're all booing me, but I have my reasons. Denny Hamlin was very fast at Martinsville. almost won that race. I mean, obviously he wrecked Chase Elliott, and that was bad, but then he would have probably won the race after that if, he hadn't been hit by Kyle Busch. So Hamlin was fast at Martinsville. He led a lot of laps at Texas and finished third, so he's got speed there. He's got momentum. And then Phoenix, he's been pretty good at in the past. I think he gets it done. I mean, he's fifth in points. I think he's going to win the race. I think he's going to win and move on to Homestead. And the other reason I'm saying that is because at the beginning of this round, I picked Martin Truex Jr., Kyle Busch, Kevin Harvick, and Denny Hamlin as the 4 finalists. And right now, I got 3 of them right. I got 3 of them right for sure. Keselowski's spoiling my bracket over there. I think I'm going to stick with my gut that I had a couple weeks ago, and I'm going to say Hamlin wins this race somehow and moves on to the next round, and then I'll be perfect. 4 for 4. That would be sweet deal. I can add that to my resume. But while my brain is picking Denny Hamlin, my heart really wants it to come down to Denny Hamlin and Chase Elliott racing for the win, racing for the playoff berth, and I really want Chase Elliott to spin Hamlin out on the last lap. That would be great. That's what I'm hoping for. I really hope that happens. Even if it doesn't, I'm sure it'll be a great race this weekend. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode. If you haven't seen it already, I uploaded my big, long vlog adventure video from this last weekend at Texas Motor Speedway. That's on my channel now, or maybe on the side somewhere. You can check that out if you haven't already. Follow me on Twitter. I appreciate that there. Snapchat if you want. I don't post that much to Snapchat, but you can if you want. Otherwise, I got nothing. Tell your friends about the show. If you have friends, family who love NASCAR, like racing, introduce them to the show, because I really appreciate seeing new viewers, new people in the comment section, people who say, hey, my friend of mine recommended my show to you, or I just found this show and I really like it. I love seeing those comments, and I hope that this show can reach as many people that are interested in it as possible. So thanks for all that. Thank you for watching. Thanks for all the loyal support. It means a ton to me, guys. And thank you, Matt Kenseth, for being a great race car driver and a great ambassador to NASCAR and a great role model to me and many others. I guess that's my PSA. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll be back and I'll see you next Thursday. Have a great week.